Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively at Gertrude's celebrating the holidays. All the political talk's over. We're done talking about Dan's play. Come see it. It's right here at the BMA. He's working on a 1966 Orioles play. We'll bring out the court dockets later on in life, but right now we're going to talk about two of my favorite things: holidays and food and family. John Shields, my cousin by marriage, is here. John, tell everybody how we're related.
Well, my cousin Aubrey is married to your son. That we found out.
Does that make us family, Dan?
That's family. Yeah, it's extended family.
So we're having a family conversation, and Dan's my adopted uncle.
Right.
And so 2 years ago.
I just found that out today.
It's like all in the family.
Well, why don't you take me fishing twice? You're my uncle.
Okay.
It's either that or courtship Eddie's father.
I'm with you. Oh, Mr. Eddie's father.
Let me tell you about my best friend. There you go.
Right.
John Shields is my cousin. Dan Rodricks is my friend from the Baltimore Sun. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery, as well as our friends at Jiffy Lube. I'm giving away these tickets. Come see me next week at Fadley's. So Dan knows you. You know Dan. I hit Dan to get to know you.
Right.
And he said, John Shields is the nicest man I know. Call him. He'll let you set up, not during his lunch hour because there's a lot of people here. You'll be able to do the show. So last year, and then I find out we're like related. I've been back. We've had oysters together. We convened here. You left the bar open the night of your show last year for all my friends and family, our friends and family. And we had a big celebration here. But I didn't know the depth of your relationship. So this is I haven't had you on together.
Oh, it's pretty deep.
Well, right before I came on the air, Dan said, I named Gertrude. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we're going to start with that.
So John came back to Baltimore to be a restaurateur, and I had him on my radio show when his first Chesapeake cookbook came out.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that was when I was on WBAL. And we got to talking, and he's talking about opening this restaurant in this great space here at the Baltimore Museum of Art, but it needed a name. And let's see. So I went over a couple of things with John. His grandmother was Gertie.
Correct.
And hadn't you had a restaurant out west called Gertie's?
Yeah, Gertie's Chesapeake Bay Cafe in Berkeley.
In Berkeley.
Yeah.
You told me that story last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gertie is in his family, and Gertrude Stein is the famous woman who introduced Matisse and Picasso to the Cohn sisters, Clarabelle and Etta. I'm
going to get you on mic, John. Okay.
The BMA's most famous collection is the Cohn sisters collection of Matisse here.
I learned about that as a little boy.
Yeah. I mean, it's still
when they brought
here.
me here, it was the Cohn sisters.
It's fantastic. So I said, Gertrude Stein, she's very much connected to the reason the Baltimore Museum of Art has such a great collection from the Cohn sisters. So how about Gertrude's? And so Gertie and Gertrude's became Gertrude's, and that's why we have this restaurant name here. And John gave me a little plastic trophy about this big for naming his restaurant.
Not free vegan crab cakes for life? Nothing like that?
Similar.
Similar
to
How are you?
I'm great. Tell
me about Gertrude. Tell me about the BMA, because, Dan, you decided to do your show here, and I asked you about this before.
It's like
There's a beautiful little theater. Yeah. I had no idea the theater even existed.
That's
here,
a lot of things. A lot of people don't know that BMA has this Meyerhoff. They call it the auditorium. It should be called a theater.
Yeah.
Comfortable seating, 360 seats.
So nice.
Yeah,
it really
is
great.
Nice.
Well, in your show, you said that you did a show, the train segment. Was that not filmed here or no?
That's... John had just opened his restaurant. Well, what year did your restaurant open?
98.
There you go. 98, when I was doing Rodricks for Breakfast on Channel 2.
Not from the Kitchen? Or from the Kitchen?
We came here. We did recorded a live show, a Christmas show here, and the restaurant had just opened.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the train came to you here on the same stage.
Yes, that's one of the stories in the play.
Well, I'm trying to tease the play a little bit.
I see that. Thank you.
I love your play. You know I love your crazy play.
That.
I drag you.
It.
So I'm doing the show on yesterday at Coco's, and I did the show with Dara Bungeon. She came out, and the reason she came out, I'll make a short story long, but 2 days before Thanksgiving, my wife was 5 days of Thanksgiving. She had 22-pound turkey. She does the over the weekend, she'll do the cranberry sauce. She does the brine, like all of that. And we had all of this summer corn that she bought from Bartenfelder from the farmer's market on Sunday morning, and she chops it all off and puts it in the freezer in August. We get the right when it's the best.
Yeah.
We're like, this is the week, it's the best.
Yeah.
Let's go get 4 dozen, cut it all. Right. So she has all this corn. I said, we got to do something with the corn for Thanksgiving because some butter, salt, and pepper. It's delicious. It's summer corn. It's hard to screw it up. And Dara shared a corn pudding recipe on her Facebook. And she went over the top. I don't know Dara. I don't know her at all. I mean, I just know her as a Facebook friend. And she's like, this is so yummy. If you try it, you'll thank me. It's yummy. I looked at it. I'm like, look, it looks pretty yummy. So I sent it over to my wife on Facebook, and my wife's like, I'll make that. We made it. It was the first thing that disappeared on Thanksgiving. Your cousin, my daughter-in-law, Lulu, made the corn pudding. So it was delicious, and I invited her out. So I invited her out, and we got to talking about Nancy Longo, and because I'm doing a non-crab cake-related crab cake tour. Sue me. We're doing the Pane Rotundo at Amici's 2 weeks from now. So I'm doing the show there, and then I'll have a crab cake. And Jody down there said, you should get Nancy Longo to come make a crab cake for you. And I said, well, I'm going to call Nancy and see. And I still haven't talked to Nancy. Yesterday, her name comes up with Dara, and Dara's like, Rodricks is doing 7 Fishes with Nancy Longo. And I'm like, well, Dan's doing the show tomorrow.
Oh, she mentioned that?
Yeah. So
I guess I'm doing it.
I want to talk to you guys about Christmas dinner. And our Christmas dinners, and I think you and I talked about sauerkraut and kielbasa last year, and John Waters in Baltimore and all that East Baltimore stuff. Well, he ain't from around here, but he's caught on to some of the Baltimore things.
I think so, yeah.
But give me a little holiday spin as a chef, and for both of you, because it's near and dear to your heart to do like to do traditional things, right?
It's the Italian Christmas Eve dinner of 7 fishes. Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly of this 7 symbolism, the sacraments, the 7 sacraments, I guess.
Does it taste good?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it. I mean.
Well, my mother made bacalhau. Now bacalhau or bacalhau in the Portuguese. So I had a Portuguese grandmother and an Italian grandmother. And this is the dried, salted codfish that really has no reason to exist anymore because people used to dry and salt codfish when there were refrigerators.
Yes.
There weren't freezers, right?
Right.
But the thing is, when you reconstitute that flank of codfish, salted dried codfish, the flavor that remains after you've soaked it for I soak it for 3 days, is still there. It's still a really great flavor. It's not like the fresh codfish. Anyway, you bake that, or you can make a salad with it. And my mother would fry smelts, eel, calamari. Shrimp. We had shrimp. I'm trying to think what else we had. Anyway, we got the count up to 7. Anchovies counted.
Ain't got no crab. You ain't from around here.
No, not this. Is in the. I remember. I grew up in the Boston area.
I know this.
And that
clams? Nothing like that.
Yeah, she put clams.
There you go. See, I guessed right.
And she would mix a whole wheat pasta with the regular semolina pasta and called it pagliafieno, straw and hay, pagliafieno, to represent the manger, I guess. So there's a little bit of symbolism there.
I love this.
Yeah. And then my brother Eddie and I would go, we were altar boys, we would go to midnight mass smelling of fish and garlic. And so it was wonderful. Yeah. That was a meal you had before you went to church.
Now, John, you're a real Baltimore guy, right? So what's your Christmas thing?
What did you guys do on Christmas
Totally
Eve?
Nothing like that. Okay. All right. So what I would do to get a kind of culinary treat is to climb over the fence out back and go to the Franchetti's
to
an Italian person's house because like around Christmas they had just everything
we had
on
fried
the table.
dough too. We had
and raviolis, and they would have turkey, and they would have ham.
On Christmas Day, you mean?
They would make French toast. That was like a savory. It was just, like a spread. Okay. So I come from the Irish Catholic with a little German kind of thing. So it's basically you're doing the same thing you did at Thanksgiving. So you have the turkey and you have the mashed potatoes and you have
we were a
yams.
ham family.
Yeah.
We did turkey Thanksgiving, ham
on
Christmas.
Yeah.
That was my family.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same stuff. The mashed potatoes, the green beans. It's a basic white bread sort of. There was nothing weird about my Christmas or fishy or ethnic or, I had a couple of drunk relatives who'd show up from Dundalk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had sometimes the cops show up.
Yeah.
But like that. The sauerkraut thing happened, believe it or not. We were in Gertrude's, right? I can say Miss Gertrude Gibson was my mother's best friend up the street. And if you ever heard of Stanstock, which is a music festival they have every year here, Stan Gibson is Gert's son.
Okay.
Gert Gibson and her husband Sam, Mr. Sam Gibson, were my parents' best friends growing up on Bank Street in Dundalk. And we would, because we didn't have a real big family, my parents lost their son in 1969, so it was a very sad kind of my childhood. We would go to their house, and their house was electric. They had 4 kids. They had relatives, just people all over the place. But they had this crock pot in the kitchen, and Mr. Sam would lord over it, and it was the sauerkraut and the kielbasa from Ostrowski's. And that is something that
was that on Christmas Eve or
Thanksgiving and Christmas night. Christmas night. They had it for both events. And we would spend, they were like our second family. You know, we didn't have a lot of family. We would walk, you know, from here to the other end of the 2 blocks away. We would go to their house, and they were Polish, or had a Polish, she was Polish, and they had sauerkraut and kielbasa, and that became a part of my staple. And the more I've talked about it, 33 years on the radio, every time I talk about kielbasa and sauerkraut, it becomes a thing. I know you've had to write about it at various points.
And John has Kraut Fest every year here at Gertrude.
Well, that's why I want to bring this up with you, because I come at it honest from a woman named Gertrude.
And so do I.
He does it every January, right?
Every January we have Kraut Fest, and we make the sauerkraut from scratch. And we have a polka band, and we have everything that we got the kielbasa.
I want to come.
Got the come on in. I think
great.
it's like somewhere around the 25th of January.
Make reservations. You gotta.
I got to get in on this.
Yeah.
They make their own kraut. Yeah.
So it's fun. It's like a party, and I mean, it sells out like bam, and I don't know how many more hokey pokeys I got in me.
John Shields is here. We're at Gertrude's. We're at the BMA, and Dan Rodricks is, of course, hanging out. His show will be here next week. You can get all the informational tickets at youhavenoidea.org as well. I want to talk about the BMA. I want to talk about your restaurant. I want to talk about the space. You mentioned the theater upstairs. I was here. I got here an hour early today, and Mayor Schmoke was here earlier today. I saw Kurt Anderson here, Rob Long. A bunch of people were dining in your place, and I'm wandering through and feeling the seasonal part of this. This is one of the real treasures, I think, of the city, and I want you guys to talk about that, because I didn't bring anybody from the BMA here to talk about the Cone Sisters and all that stuff, but this is a place I came as a child. I've been here for many events out on the outside. I've done family events here with you. Last year was part of our big Christmas celebration. This is one of those places that you live here every day. You come here and do your show here. This is one of those places I don't know everybody in Baltimore has been to the BMA.
Well, they better get over here. I mean, it is, it's an iconic part of Baltimore and the Baltimore experience. And, we are talking, we always bring up the Cone collection. It is the largest collection of Matisse in the world. Yeah. And all the scholarship around Matisse is now done here. There's a new Matisse.
You're teaching me a lot. That's what I want you to do, please.
Center. So that's just an amazing thing. The museum already has just done a thing called indigenizing the museum. So it's took a look through art, through stories, a lot of the Native American tribes around this region, and it's a phenomenal collection of those kinds of things. So the museum's always doing new things. They're like kind of pushing boundaries. Next year is going to be the year of the environment, looking at art, the environment, the turning of the season. So there's always so much going on. And we work with them a lot. Like right now, we have the Holiday Row homes. I don't know if you voted yet, but I want you up there.
I took a picture of that.
Yeah. Okay. So this year, there's 8 houses. 5 of them are from people from the BMA. There's guards, the people.
And they're all lit up for the holidays.
They are, and we do a whole contest around that. And literally thousands of people come every year to see these.
See this now?
homes.
Oh, it's becoming like 34th Street.
It is. It is. It's our little miracle. Yeah. So it's a nice collaboration again with the museum because we were doing a little food, a little art. And we also think of Gertrude's as kind of one of the exhibit spaces. And the reason for that is because it's called Gertrude's Chesapeake Kitchen. So we do recipes from, all kinds, but from all over the Chesapeake region. So when people are traveling to Baltimore and visiting, they can get a taste of Maryland and the Chesapeake, even if they don't have time to go to Southern Maryland.
In my opinion, it's not just because of a friendship with John, but it's consistently good menu of specials, a regular menu and specials. And you can't go, I always tell people, go to Gertrude's because you're guaranteed to have a good meal there. You're not going to get a bad meal there. There's just some of the food is really inventive, and others just a sort of staple, really good oyster stew
Yeah.
and the fried oysters.
I had the fried
You had
oysters.
the fried
Well, I
oysters.
did the oyster tour. I began my
Yeah.
oyster tour with him back here in September.
Oh,
And I
okay.
came over, we had fried oysters, and I had never had a fried oyster in my life until
Yeah.
Damie gave me one down at Fadley's like 2 years ago and inspired me.
Oh, yeah.
And then we started talking about oysters and the bay and the oxygenation of the bay and population and just and what an oyster city this was. How like the Inner Harbor was one giant oyster at one point, right? Like how we were over harvested.
Yeah.
And then I learned from the Oyster Recovery Partnership that there were oyster police, and there was
Oyster
like a
Navy.
whole.
An oyster navy.
Yep.
They had an oyster navy from like the,
There was an organized crime thing around oysters,
yes,
right?
Yes,
And an oyster
yeah.
war, actually. They had a war.
They
bay.
had an oyster.
They don't teach you about that at school, John.
It actually went on from like the 1840s until as late as 1950. People were shooting each other over oyster beds in the Chesapeake Bay. Yeah,
You guys are both looking at me like I know this, and I don't really. I don't think people really know this.
They actually had because the oystermen in New England and New York had pretty much scoured out everything up there. They sailed their boats down to the Chesapeake, and they thought they'd just walk in and start harvesting Chesapeake oysters. Well, the watermen in Maryland and Virginia said, well, it's not going to be
You ain't from around here.
Yeah, he ain't from around here. And also, a businessman from New York came down and built a hotel, or either took over a hotel right on the Inner Harbor, right near where Harbor Place is. And his oystermen would live in that hotel. They would Shanghai people and put them on oyster boats and send them out there to work in dredging oysters. And then there would be shots fired. There would be, people were killed over oyster beds, fighting over oyster beds. So the Maryland legislature established an oyster navy.
Yeah.
They had an admiral. They had a boat with a cannon on it to go around patrolling to try to keep these guys from killing each other. And that went on for years. And the Oyster Navy was the forerunner of the Maryland Natural Resources Police. There's a little bit of history.
I love you. You wonder why I want you to be my uncle. It's things like that.
I always thought it would make a good movie for somebody.
Oh, it's something.
Get Daniel Day-Lewis as the evil guy who's shanghaiing drunken Baltimoreans and putting them on oyster boats. Who's the mayor at the time?
Jack Warden. Got to be Jack Warden.
Yeah,
you got to play it,
Well, he's
going to be the head of the Navy.
I'm just trying. Yeah, okay. We got to get.
I don't know. And the first admiral could be Tom Hanks, right?
That's who I want to.
There's no crying in the Oyster Navy, you know.
All right, so John Shields is here, Dan's here. I want to ask both of you, because you're both foodie guys, and this is a stupid TV thing, but what's the best thing you've ever eaten?
Oh.
Seriously, like what you've eaten? We all talk about meals, and we had this, and we love that, and Gertrude has this, but like, I don't want to say Last Supper, like what's the last meal you would order, but like I think about people ask me all the time, like what's the best thing in town, and I'm like, well, you should definitely have the broccoli tempura at Ekabin. I tell people that.
That's good.
I tell people,
good.
I'm like, you
good.
should get the meatballs at Amici's. You should get, I just go around and I say you should get this or try that or whatever. But I'm thinking like, to ask a chef, if you could put something on your menu and say, this is the greatest cake I ever had, the greatest dessert I had, the greatest salad dressing. I don't know, but that's a question you ask yourself every day because you're trying to like serve great things, right?
I guess. I don't talk to myself a lot anymore. But
you eat 3 times a day. I'm looking at you.
I do, but I just eat potatoes most of the time. I mean, that's what I can live on. Potato mashed up with
What do you mean you
broccoli.
can live on?
I love it. That's what I
You
eat.
love potatoes.
And applesauce.
Oh,
that's
good.
my last meal, but if I had to have a last meal, I'd have to have fried chicken with it.
Fried chicken.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I like that.
Hey, Gertrude's fried chicken is pretty damn good. Yeah. What is that, Tuesday nights?
It was Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
Remember when we had Tuesdays?
Ooh.
It's coming back.
Oh,
next year it's going to be.
It's not on the menu.
It's going to be
It's a special.
Thursdays with Gertie.
Thursday
because the
with Gertie is
museum
fried
is
chicken.
open late.
Yeah, until 9 o'clock.
Until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So next year in January, we're going to take that and move it to
Yeah.
Thursdays with Gertie. Maryland fried chicken with all the
Well,
fixings.
the only I'm Royal Farm sponsored, so it's got
Uh-huh.
to. That's where my bar is. You better
Well,
at
that
least
is-
come in there.
That's a good bar to be up with because that's one of my go-tos.
It's not English's chicken. I'm going old school here. Absolutely. What about you, Dan? I mean, you mentioned these 7 fishes, and you had this big smile on your face about your family and your mother.
Yeah, my mother. I like that meal a lot, but it does. My favorite thing to eat would be. People don't like to hear about veal anymore, but my mother's veal cutlets were like really good, really good.
That's it.
That would be.
Is that a marinara or was that a
my-
how did breaded, fried?
Yeah, she would bread them, sort of like a
chicken
chicken parmesan,
Yeah.
but they were veal sliced very thin. She'd put them with breadcrumbs.
It's not politically correct, Dan.
I know.
That's not vegan.
I don't eat veal anymore. So anyway, but that was one of her things. I also like a good lamb stew. I like a good lamb stew, don't you?
That's always great.
It's not that easy to. You got to cook it at home. I don't see it in restaurant
You
menus
don't see it
much.
a lot.
Every year you do the pepper and eggs thing, and then I have to go make pepper and eggs.
So pepper and eggs was something I grew up with eating as a cheap sandwich to make, but it was really good. You just take a good green bell peppers or cubanas and saute those, and then you beat up some eggs and throw it in there, and it all gets all smelly and good. With
no
olive
cheese?
oil.
No?
You can sprinkle a little Parmesan in there. Some people put a slice of provolone in the sub. Then you make a sub with it. And the important thing is to seal the sub. You fill the sub with the peppers and eggs, which is really oily and smells great, right? And you seal it with aluminum foil, and you got to leave it for like 10 minutes.
And let's soften up a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, so you like it a little softer.
The bread becomes infused with all the aromas of the eggs and the peppers. And
when do you do this? Every year you do this?
This is I declared it the official sandwich of Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Yeah, so
that's a good sandwich for Labor Day.
I didn't get a congressional resolution or anything. I just announced it, and I repeat that every year, hoping that other people will try it. And other people have tried it, and I get lots of mail from people saying, "Thank you for introducing me to the peppers and egg sub."
Well, those peppers and things are good, like the peppers and sausage.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sartori, who lived behind us, she would always do, every Saturday, she would do the peppers and sausage. Now, this was a reason to do it, is she wouldn't let you have it till you came home from confession.
Oh,
and so everybody go to confession.
Yeah.
Then you come home and you would get the peppers and sausage, and it was just so good.
It feels like forgiveness to you.
Yes, it was forgiveness. It was absolution, for God's sake.
I would go fishing with my father, and it would be a long trip. It would be we go to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and then on a boat 2 hours out into the Atlantic there, way out there where you could see the Russian fishing trawlers and you could see whales. And my mother's peppers and egg sandwich would be in a brown bag, and
waiting for you.
And you could smell it the whole time. I said, "Can we eat now? Can we eat now? When can we eat?" That's all. That was the best part of the fishing trip. So
I've gotten more like you do that Labor Day, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about things we do for Christmas, or let's go Boston sauerkraut, or the whole world has a turkey on Thanksgiving or whatever. As I've gotten older, and my palate, and the more I eat, and the more I talk to people who eat, and the more my wife cooks good soups and things like that, I start to think about the things that become cyclical for us, like the things, because we'll get a giant ham, even though there's just 4 of us, your cousin, my son, and my wife. That's it. That's my Christmas, right? We get this giant ham, and my wife gets the ham left over, so she will make ham and bean soup, right? So the soups that come after these things, and then we eat that January, February, March, freeze it, pull it out, do whatever. But peaches in this city in the summer corn, heirloom, seasonal
tomatoes,
anything that's seasonal that moves along, and even crab cakes. And I know I've talked to you about this. You get a crab cake on the Eastern Shore in August, and it's got that orange roe in it because the female crab, and just the sweetness and the brackishness because it comes out of the chop tank or whatever. Doesn't taste like that in February, right? I mean, and I think the freshness of the seasons and loving food in season is that's a beautiful part of being 56. That when I was 36. Tomato's a tomato. Lettuce is lettuce. No, it's not. There's a huge difference in the flavors of all of these things seasonally.
Yeah, of course it is. And I mean, one of the things I always liked about that aspect of it, it really taught everybody some delayed gratification.
Get a peach cake now. Got to wait till July.
Because you waited till the asparagus came in the spring. You waited for the peaches to come. You would wait it, and it was just this marvelous time. The anticipation was such a great part of that, as well as it just so good.
Yeah.
I went to the Pepper Mill on day 2 of my oyster tour after it was you.
Did you?
They didn't have any oysters. They're like, not ready yet. The good ones aren't in. Come back next week. So I had to wait until like day 20 to go do my Pepper Mill.
Yeah.
And I was the youngest guy in there, but it felt good. It felt good to be a young guy. John Shields is here. He's a young guy. Dan Rodricks is a young old timer. Baltimore Sun, and of course at Gertrude's, the BMA. Just a great place to come. And if you get bored and you have a day in the winter and it's cold, and what am I going to do today? Park over here, walk in.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a Disney World on a cold day.
It
really is.
I got a good idea for you. You're too cold. You don't know what to do. You don't want to go out walking. It's a little too cold.
Walk around here.
Do your mall walking right here at the museum.
Yeah.
And you can take in the art, get in your steps, and you're going to be great and warm.
A lot of admission here, too, at the BMA, right? Zero. It's free.
Zero.
How many things do we say in life are free?
Free.
Yeah,
Yes.
And we all know the best things in life
Could be free.
are free.
Well, yeah. I agree with that.
7 Fishes. The show is Baltimore.
Oh, fish has gotten
You
a
have
little pricey.
no idea. The show begins next week, 5 days, 11th through the 15th. You can find it all at youhavenoidea.org.
Thank you, Nancy.
John, of course, you can find. Tell everybody your Chesapeake Kitchen, promote your book, your podcast. You got all this stuff. You
Dear God. Yeah, I do a podcast and a thing called Chesapeake Bites. We travel all around the Chesapeake Bay, and we put a spotlight on the watermen, the farmers, the artisan food makers, little places that you can go to do all of this. And it also, we have a scholarship program through our Common Table for culinary scholarship. So we have like about 9 or 10 students.
There's my next career. That's it right there. I was wondering what I'm going to do when this is over with. That's it right there.
So so we, there's always something going on. I always have my hands in this, that, or the other thing, and it makes life exciting.
And he has beautiful food. Come on over to Gertrude's and enjoy all that we have here in Baltimore, the BMA. Dan Rodricks' show is there. His column is still here at the Baltimore Sun, and you can find both of these fine gentlemen, whom I call family and family by choice, out on social media as well. Good luck with your play, all right?
Thank you.
Invited
thank you very
me
much.
to come and see it for the 3rd time,
Yeah.
and he's roping me in. He's like, we got new scenes. We got new...
I'm going. I'll be
Why
there
should I go with
Thursday
you?
night. You're gonna come through?
I'm gonna come see the play next week.
All right,
Okay.
great.
Dan Rodricks, John Shields. We are at the BMA. Stacey Munsell's going to join us next. Talk about some ladies doing some networking around town. It is the holidays. We got row houses over here. I had Nick the Greek on yesterday, Coco's, and he said the most essential Baltimore word that I can think of properly. He said, "I feel like I'm home." And I feel like I'm home anytime
Yeah,
I'm over
I
here
can
at
hear him,
Gertrude.
yeah.
Back for more here. We're Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.